Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's get started. My name is Alex. When someone you plan to spend the rest of your life with compares you to other people, even as a joke, they're showing you how they truly see you. After that, it becomes almost impossible to keep moving toward marriage, no matter how much time and love you've already invested. I had been engaged to Jessica for 8 months when she told me one evening, almost casually, that her friends didn't think I was impressive enough for her. They told her she could aim higher. She said it like it was nothing, just something funny her friend said. But that one sentence felt like a spotlight shining on everything I had ignored. At that moment, I finally saw the truth I didn't want to admit. Before Jessica, I wasn't looking for anything serious. At that point, I was a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Denver. My life was comfortable with a simple routine that worked for me. Work kept me busy, so dating wasn't really at the top of my list. I'd been through a few relationships in my 20s. They didn't end with big fights or drama, just differences that became clearer over time. Those experiences taught me to be careful with love, not to rush into commitment, not to force something that didn't feel right. My attitude became, if love shows up, great. If not, life goes on. I wasn't desperate, but I was open if the right person came along. I met Jessica at a dinner party thrown by a mutual friend. She had just gotten out of a messy relationship. You could tell she was still hurting from it. What drew me to her wasn't her looks, though she was definitely attractive. It was the way she tried so hard to hide her sadness behind big smiles and silly jokes. I could see the pain she was covering up. Something in me wanted to make her feel safe again. Talking to her that night felt easy. There were no pretenses or little games. Just an honest conversation about work, hobbies, goals, and life in general. She seemed relieved to talk to someone who wasn't trying to impress her or rush her into anything. After that party, we started talking more, texting during the week, meeting up for coffee, and having simple dinners. We built a friendship before anything romantic started. I tried to be gentle with her because I could tell her past relationship had left deep marks. I wanted her to feel safe and to understand that not every man would treat her the way her ex had. I wanted her to trust again. But even in the beginning of our relationship, I noticed something small, something I chose to ignore. Sometimes she would subtly compare me to her ex. Not all the time, but enough for me to notice. The comparisons weren't strong enough for me to confront her about them. I tried to see it through the lens of normalcy, since she was still healing. I didn't believe that she was unhappy with me, and I assumed that once she felt more secure, she'd stop doing it. After about 1.5 years of dating, we started talking more seriously about our future. We discussed living together one day and possibly getting married. We both wanted the same things, a steady relationship, a future family, and a simple, comfortable middle-class life. But during that time, we never moved in together. My apartment was a tiny one-bedroom that barely had space for me alone, so it definitely wasn't suitable for 2 people. Jessica lived in a 2-bedroom place with a roommate, and that wasn't a great setup for a couple either. We talked about getting our own place together someday, but we didn't feel the need to rush. After 3 years of dating, I decided I wanted to propose. I felt like we had built a strong, stable relationship. I believe we also understood each other well enough to make a marriage work. I planned a simple but meaningful proposal. We had dinner at a nice restaurant, and then I took her to a scenic lookout spot she once said she liked. It was traditional but personal, precisely what I thought she'd appreciate. Jessica said yes right away. She was emotional and seemed genuinely excited. For a moment, I felt certain I had made the right decision. The wedding planning was fun for both of us. We visited potential venues, looked at rings, discussed how we wanted the ceremony to be, and met with our families to organize. It was much work, especially since we were both still living in separate apartments and working full-time jobs, but we managed. But the closer we got to our wedding day, the more I started to notice things I had ignored before. Jessica began comparing me to the men her friends were dating or married to. Some had flashier lives, better paying jobs, or more luxurious hobbies. She always acted like it was a joke. But the tone of her words made it clear she was comparing our relationship to others, and she did not like how ours looked in comparison. I loved her, so I tried to brush it off. I told myself that every couple feels some pressure when they see other people's relationships online or in real life. To me, her friends' relationships probably looked better from the outside than they actually were. But the comments didn't stop. It didn't feel like harmless insecurity anymore. It started to feel like she was quietly telling me she wasn't satisfied. I know she loved me in her own way, but she also deeply cared about how others saw her relationship. She wanted the flashy lifestyle, the fancy gifts, the look at what my boyfriend did for me type of attention her friends constantly got. And in her eyes, I wasn't impressive enough. The pressure was quiet, but constant. It was like background noise, always there, even if we didn't talk about it openly. It made me feel like I was constantly being judged, always being measured against standards I couldn't see and could never meet. One evening, Jessica came over to my apartment for her usual weekend visit. We were sitting on the couch, going through our wedding guest list together. We checked names, looked up addresses, and tried to make sure everything was in order. While we worked, she kept scrolling through her phone, checking social media, laughing at videos, and showing me posts from her friends about their relationships and everyday lives. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "My friends think you're not impressive enough for me. They say I should have aimed higher." She even said it with a little laugh, like it was supposed to be a harmless joke we could both laugh at. She thought I would find it funny too. But it didn't feel funny to me in any way. Suddenly, every small comment she had ever made, every tiny comparison, every moment where she seemed unsure about me, came together and made sense. Her friends didn't think I was good enough for her. And the worst part was that she felt comfortable telling me that. Personally, I find that statement incredibly disrespectful. I swallowed the hurt, kept my face calm, and said quietly, "Then go ahead." Jessica laughed even harder, thinking I was joking along with her. She thought we were still playing around. But I wasn't joking. Not at all. Because if her friends believed I wasn't good enough, and she thought it enough to repeat it, then she should go find someone who met whatever high level she and her friends expected. I wasn't going to spend my life being compared to other men, as if I were part of some contest. That night, Jessica fell asleep in my bed like she usually does. But something inside me completely shut off. The love I had for her just died. I realized I couldn't marry someone who saw me as not quite enough, but good enough to settle for. I couldn't imagine spending decades being silently judged, measured, and found lacking. Right there, lying awake beside her, I made my decision. The engagement was over. I wasn't going to marry Jessica. By the next morning, while she was still asleep, I started making phone calls. I called the venue and canceled our wedding booking. I lost the deposit, but I didn't care. I called the catering company and canceled the food service, another lost deposit. I called the photographer and canceled the contract. Lost money again. I went through every wedding vendor I personally booked individually and canceled everything. Yes, it cost me several $1,000s. No, it didn't matter to me at all. That money was nothing compared to the pain of entering a marriage built on disrespect. Over the next few days, I didn't act angry or rude toward Jessica. I wasn't cold, but I was distant, quiet, watching, listening. Jessica didn't notice anything had changed. She assumed I was stressed about the wedding. She kept her distance, too. She never checked anything for herself. Not the venue, not the catering, not the photographer. She just assumed everything was still moving forward. I didn't tell her about the cancellations. I didn't tell my family. I didn't inform our friends. I simply stayed quiet and waited to see how everything would unfold. About a week after I canceled everything, I woke up at around 2 in the morning to see my phone blowing up. I had several missed calls and a long list of messages from one of Jessica's friends. I didn't answer right away. I scrolled through the messages first. All the texts were panicked and confusing. She kept asking if I was okay, saying something was seriously wrong. She wrote that Jessica had collapsed and that I needed to call her back immediately. I had expected Jessica to find out about the canceled wedding long before now. I thought she would have checked on the venue, the decorators, or at least one of the vendors during the week. But she hadn't. She had gone on with her life like everything was still normal, until her bachelorette party that night. Apparently, during the party, someone mentioned or contacted someone at the venue, which prompted Jessica to check the wedding plans herself. And that was when she discovered the truth. Everything had been canceled. The wedding everyone thought was happening in less than a week wasn't happening at all. According to the messages, Jessica collapsed the moment she found out. She had some kind of breakdown right there in the middle of the party. Her friends didn't know what to do. When I finally called back, the noise on the other end was loud and chaotic. Everyone was freaking out. Jessica's friend answered and immediately started demanding answers. She asked if this was a joke, if I was going through some kind of crisis, or if I had lost my mind. She wanted to know why I canceled the entire wedding without telling anyone. I told her calmly that it wasn't a prank. The wedding was not happening. I said that Jessica deserved someone more impressive, according to her friend's standards, and that she should go find that person instead of settling for someone like me. The friend tried to argue. She said this could still be fixed, that whatever happened could be talked through. She said I couldn't just cancel a wedding weeks before the date over some misunderstanding. But it was 2 a.m, and I had no energy left to explain or argue with anyone. I told her my decision was final. Then I ended the call and turned off my phone. Jessica woke up later that morning and realized I wasn't with her. The first thing she did was try to call me. But since my phone was turned off, every call she made went straight to voicemail. I didn't turn my phone back on until that afternoon. The moment it powered up, my screen exploded with notifications, voicemails, and a long list of text messages. All from Jessica. Every message sounded desperate, confused, and scared. She clearly had no idea what was going on. When she called again, I finally answered. The moment she heard my voice, she broke down crying. She was sobbing, so hard she could barely speak. She kept asking what happened, what she did wrong, and why I had left like that. She begged me not to end things and promised that, whatever the issue, we could fix it together. I stayed calm and repeated exactly what I told her friend the night before. I said she deserved someone better, someone her friends would approve of, someone who fit the image her social group expected. I told her I wasn't that person and I wasn't going to keep pretending to be. She tried to explain everything away. She said she had been joking when she mentioned that her friends didn't think I was impressive enough. She said it wasn't serious, that she didn't mean it, and that she loved me no matter what anyone else said. But the truth is, the damage was already done. I couldn't forget what she said. I couldn't ignore the past 3 years of subtle comments, comparisons, and feeling like I was constantly being measured against other men. I couldn't walk into a marriage knowing I would never feel good enough in her world. So I told her clearly, the engagement was over. There would be no wedding. We were completely done. Jessica begged harder. She asked for another chance, for time to prove she really valued me. She suggested counseling, long talks, anything that might fix the relationship. But my decision was final. I was simply sure. Ending things now was better than ending a marriage later, after years of unhappiness. Eventually, she realized I was serious, and nothing she said would change my mind. Her calls slowly became fewer and fewer. And then, one day, they stopped altogether. The aftermath was a lot more complicated than I expected. Our mutual friends quickly took sides. Some completely understood why I walked away. Others said I had reacted way too strongly, like I had blown everything out of proportion. A few friends even stopped talking to me altogether because they felt I had cruelly abandoned Jessica. Jessica's family reached out to me in the beginning. They tried to help us fix things because they had already accepted me into their family. They didn't want everything to fall apart because of what they believed was a small misunderstanding. I appreciated their kindness, but I stayed firm in my decision. I told them this wasn't about one hurtful comment. It was about a pattern of behavior I had seen over the last 3 years. My own family supported me once I explained everything that happened. My mom said she had always felt Jessica seemed a little unhappy or unsatisfied, but she didn't want to meddle in my relationship. My dad was more direct. He said that any woman who could look at her fiancé and say he wasn't impressive enough didn't deserve to marry him. Then there was the financial part. I lost thousands of dollars in deposits for the wedding venue, catering, decorations, and other vendors. None of it was fully refundable. It hurt to lose that much. In the end, I treated it as a very expensive lesson. It's better to recognize you're not compatible before getting married than to trap yourself in a lifelong mistake. The emotional aftermath took much longer to deal with than I expected. Even though I knew I had made the right choice, ending a 3-year relationship left a big empty space in my life. All the habits and routines I had built around Jessica suddenly had to disappear. The future I thought we would share had to be completely replaced with something new. For several months, I spent most of my time alone. I tried to rebuild who I was because I realized that much of my confidence had been worn down by constant judgment and comparison. During that quiet time, I finally understood how much mental energy I had wasted trying to look impressive all the time. I saw how tiring it had been to always wonder if I was good enough. And for the first time in a long while, it felt amazing to just be myself without feeling like someone was always judging me. Looking back now, after I canceled the wedding and ended the engagement, I can finally see everything clearly. I didn't understand any of it while I was in the middle of it. I learned that jokes can hide real feelings. Jessica often made comments that seemed playful, but they actually hurt me. I now understand that people sometimes use humor to say harsh truths, because it lets them pretend they didn't mean it if they get called out. I learned that helping someone heal doesn't mean you owe them your whole life. I supported Jessica while she tried to move on from her past relationship. I was patient, I listened, I stayed by her side. But that didn't mean I owed her a marriage, especially after realizing she didn't see me as enough. Helping someone get better isn't a debt I have to repay by staying forever. I learned that small comparisons can slowly destroy a relationship. Jessica often compared me to her ex or to other men her friends dated. Sometimes the comments were tiny. Sometimes she said them like they were jokes. But all those little comparisons added up. Over time, they made me feel like I was constantly being scored or judged rather than loved for who I really was. I learned that for some people, how a relationship looks matters more than how it actually feels. Jessica cared more about her friends' opinions than our connection. She wanted a partner who would impress her social circle. It didn't matter how well we communicated or how loyal I was. What mattered to her was whether other people would think her partner was high status. I realized I could never win a game like that because the rules kept changing based on what her friends thought. Most importantly, I learned that canceling a wedding right before it happens is still better than getting divorced right after marriage. Yes, I lost thousands of dollars in deposits. Yes, I spent 3 years in a relationship that ended. But that was still better than spending decades with someone who made me feel like I was never enough. Money and time shouldn't trap you in a life that will make you miserable. Now I'm at peace with my decision. I know marrying Jessica would have been a colossal mistake. She needed someone who would constantly impress others, not someone who loved her sincerely. And I deserve a partner who values me for who I am, not someone who judges me based on outside opinions. The process wasn't easy. I had to accept that 3 years had gone by. I had to deal with the financial losses from all the canceled wedding plans. I had to listen to people who thought I overreacted. And it hurt. But it was worth it. Because now I'm free. I'm not waking up every day feeling like I'm being compared to other men. I'm not living under pressure to be good enough for her friends. I deserve someone who thinks I'm enough exactly as I am. Jessica wasn't that person. So I left before I made a permanent mistake.